The Stag of the 99th Night. Have you ever heard a story so scary you couldn't sleep? In a village nestled between hills and a dark forest, there lived a man who heard whispers about the forest. They said at night, the forest counted, and when it reached the 99th night, it would take what didn't belong to you. One day he decided to test it. He entered the forest and stayed there, counting the nights. On the first night, he heard only the wind. But on the 10th night, he heard the steps of a deer, and he marked it with a tally. On the 36th night, he saw the first shadow that moved like a man, but it laid on the ground like an animal. He drew another mark. He never saw the stag in its entirety, only in parts. First he saw the antlers, then the smell of cool ash and wet earth. Later, he saw 2 dull lamps without pupils that shone with frost. Before he saw more, he heard a voice that was his, calling him by name, stressing the syllables like someone from far away. He answered with silence, for he knew in this forest, echoes did not return in a straight line. They say the stag's coat was dark as the wet undergrowth of spruces, and that it moved without a sound. Yet when it pressed its hoof into the earth, it turned hard as glass. When it stepped out of the gloom of the birches, he saw that its coat gleamed like burned needles. On its chest hung something like an old beaded cord, only the beads were birds, skulls, and withered berries of mistletoe. Its antlers branched like the roots of an uprooted tree turned upside down. Between the tines hung tiny fireflies that did not move with the wind. It had no muzzle in the human sense, for when he looked longer, the lines of its face blurred. What he saw was the outline of a being, not a body. Its body was slender and tall, yet the shadow beneath it was larger than it should have been, as if it belonged to someone else. Each night the stag led him round and round, yet each time he returned to the same place as if he were walking along the circumference of someone's pupil. Then he understood that the stag was not tracking him, but counting. It counted his breath, his steps, the snaps of wood in his fire. Every careless count, 1, 2, 3, muttered under his breath, was like a dinner bell to it. On the 52nd night, he made a mistake and counted the drops falling on his tarp. At dawn, he found hoofprints around his tent, 3 circles, no entrance, no exit. On the 74th night, he heard its voice before his own. The same timbre shifted half a breath earlier, like an inverted echo. Before he finished a thought, the forest already knew it. On the 98th night, he did not sleep. He sat on a stump with the needle stuck in the ground and the notebook open to a blank page. He had a pinch of salt in his pocket, which he rolled between his fingers till his hands sweated with fear. The stag came so quietly he noticed it only when the stars on its antlers formed a shape he knew. It stood opposite him with only the width of a step between them. The stag tasted his past, speaking with a voice he had not heard in a long time. Imitating that laugh, it invited him with a single tilt of its neck, the kind all who have ever followed someone, because it was simpler, would recognize. Then he understood that the stag's power lay not in rending, but in devouring roads. It takes the paths you would have taken yourself and leaves only one, seemingly the shortest. He took out the notebook and flipped through the days he had counted. Each tally sounded like a match breaking beside his ear. He closed his eyes and told the forest everything he would not do. He would not follow the voice, he would not count his steps, he would not shorten the way. When he opened his eyes, the antlers looked like dry branches, and the fireflies between them had gone out. The stag drew back its head as if something had hurt it. After a moment, it stepped into the trees, which drank it like water. At dawn, he found under his boot a thin glassy crust of earth, as if the night had frozen the ground only for it. He laid the needle on it and heard a crack finer than a whisper. He closed the notebook and hid it deep. As he crossed the forest's edge, he felt himself passing through something like a spider's thread stretched across the path. He did not look back. In the village, they later said that the forest dislikes it when you stop counting, because you steal its power over the hours. And of the stag, they whispered that it is not a demon, but a bookkeeper of the dark. It will return when someone's tongue trembles and they begin to count for courage. And it will stand on the path, patient, with antlers full of extinguished stars, ready to offer the shortest road to ruin,